We have a disturbing in a good way for
A
Apocaflix
poster.
now. I think Smashing Padme is our alternate Padawan shirt.
Oh my goodness. There
I
we
can't, dude. I cannot get that out of my head.
That's how
I
it
think you just permanently ruined that scene with me
Oh my
of
God.
Hold
Obi-Wan
on.
just standing at
Now
the top
you guys-
with his arms on his
Oh
hips.
my God.
Hold on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Padawan Podcast for Apocaflix Movies, our all Star Wars podcast right here on the channel. I am your regular host, Jake Berlin, a.k.a. Qui-Gon Jake, as I go by on this podcast. And this is our all Star Wars podcast. We're breaking down everything from the galaxy far, far away, but today specifically, and for the month, it's all about rankings. We're doing different parts of Star Wars and rankings. If you did not see last week's episode, we ranked our favorite lightsaber duels, or fights, I should say, in the Skywalker saga, and we ranked them from 10 to 1 and came up with a consensus list. And we're doing the same thing today, except we are doing it with characters. Yes, we are going to be revealing our favorite all-time list of characters. This isn't a most powerful list. This isn't the best Star Wars character. This is all personal, and it's going to create a consensus list at the end of the show. I will be tallying it as we go, and we're going to find out what the top 5 for the Padawan Podcast is. And doing that with me today, per usual, you guys can see them right here on the screen. I got Mr. Obi-Wan Jacoby right there in the middle. How you doing, man?
Hello there. I am doing great, man. I'm happy. Got my new Fandalorian shirt the other day.
Cool,
It looks
super
so
cool.
good in the red. I'm excited.
And then we have Mr. Grand Admiral Cena right there on the right-hand side. How you doing over there?
Ready to tackle the hardest question you've ever asked us in all of our friendships.
Yeah. No, we when I put this test to you guys, we didn't talk for a couple days, and I sent a text out and I asked you guys, is anybody else having as hard of a time as I am? And each of you responded saying, this is the worst list we've ever had.
I was doing my list as you texted us, and I was stuck. I had like number 4 down, and I couldn't go past that. And it was really tough. I felt like I was just killing my own children by not putting them in the top 10. Like, that's how it felt, even though I don't have kids.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I wanted to reiterate with you guys earlier today and our viewers that this is a favorite list. This isn't who's the best Jedi, who's the best dark person. It's our favorite personal list. And so they're all going to be very different. And so the consensus list could be very just random and put together as far as points go. Luckily, I don't control that. I put it in a spreadsheet and it controls it for me, and we go from there. But I'm looking forward to this. And so what we're going to do is our personal lists are going to consist of 10. We're going to run through 10 each, and then we're going to come up with a consensus Padawan podcast list, and that's how it's going to go. And last time I started with Brian. This time I'm going to start with Jacob. So, Mr. Bartley, starting us off for our favorite character list for the Padawan podcast. Break it down. What is your number 10?
This is so difficult, man. Because this is where it hurt the most. Because can you guys, don't say who it is, but can you guys look at your 11 and 12s and does it break your heart not to have them on the list?
You guys are probably going to be shocked at my 11 and 12s.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be shocked. Oh,
Like,
at 11 and 12?
My list, it's probably going to blow some people's minds.
My 11 and 12s, and honestly, my 11 through 15 really hurt not to have on this list. But this is what a ranking is about. You have to make tough decisions. And when it came down to it, I could not see this list without this character on it. And that is Miss, whatever you want to call her, Miss Rey Palpatine or Rey Skywalker.
Nice.
She changed her name at the DMV. I wonder how many credits that cost in the Star Wars galaxy. But Rey,
Trying to get another shirt made.
Yeah, Rey is my number 10. As I started making my list, I was surprised that she hadn't shown up yet, and I'm pretty comfortable with, because if I ever do change my mind, it's probably going to be somewhere between like the 15 to the 8 range. So she's not going to go much higher than this. But when I consider every character that I was looking at, I love the Rey character, and most of it is due to Daisy Ridley's performance. She's phenomenal. I mean, we saw her kind of progress through the trilogy, and Rise of Skywalker is her best performance, I would say. And I know we talked about that, Jake, that how great she is in that movie. And I've rewatched it, and just the way she carries herself emotionally through all three films, because like in The Force Awakens, she's very optimistic and just kind of doe-eyed in a little way. And then in the second film, she's kind of just confused, trying to figure things out. And the third film, she's just like on a mission to what she thinks is to go kill Palpatine, and then all these things unfold. So
feels like a completely different character.
Yeah, I love Rey, and I think for me, she's already an all-time great. But I think when we look back, 15, 20 years from now, she'll be like considered an icon in Star Wars. So
her character will definitely get better with time, in my opinion.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the pick.
I agree with you. Wait, which one of you just said the better in time?
Oh,
well, I said it, but we both agreed.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
People will appreciate her more over time. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so Rey Skywalker for me personally, Rey Palpatine, Rey Skywalker, whatever you want to say.
I have it written down as Rey Palpatine, but
ranks in at number 10 for Jacob. Let's go across the screen, Mr. Avellino. What is your number 10? It's my show. I can choose the order.
He already knows
the order
because round the clock he can now get to end with the last one. Yeah, I wrote my stuff out on a whiteboard because I was constantly changing it. And I narrowed it down to 12. That's where I got. But picking my last two, or picking out who my 11 and 12 were, they're still sitting on my board looking at me like, really going to leave me off? But my number 10, I love the character so much because he's just an a-hole, and I absolutely love that. And it's K2SO.
Oh,
interesting.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. First droid.
Yes. That droid is like, if I felt like if I was able to turn into a droid, that's exactly who I would be. He's a smart aleck. He literally, like, he says whatever comes to his mind, and literally just like tells people off, calls them stupid. Like, he's just too funny. And like, no matter how many times I watch Rogue One, whenever he says something, I laugh just as hard as probably the first time I heard it. So I had to have him on the list, and I couldn't leave him off. He's just too good of a character for me, because I love a sarcastic, pessimist type character, and just, yeah, I love that guy.
He's a great character.
Yeah,
and
he really is.
Perfectly.
Oh, 100%. His voice is absolutely perfect. Like when he's just like, no one's asking my opinion, but what do I know? Just stuff like that. It's just, I love that character.
Or when he slaps Diego Luna.
Yeah,
it's so good. Why? Yeah, it's so good.
And there's another one where that comes from. Like,
yeah. But then when he apologizes for it, he's so sincere, though.
Yeah.
So great character.
Yeah, love that character. So yeah, that's who I have at number 10.
All right, cool. Okay, so my number 10, actually, it just switched as Brian was talking, and I'm still having a very hard time deciding on if it's my number 10 or not. But it is also Rey Skywalker. It is also Rey. Yeah, it's funny. I was putting this list together, and she's one of the first names. I basically just, when I started this, I rambled and I just wrote a bunch of names down. Like the characters that first came to mind when I think of Star Wars, like my favorite characters I like to watch on screen. And she was one of the first I put down. And then as I started kind of like changing them around a little bit, she kind of started falling. And then I had to really tell myself, okay, this is a list of not the best Star Wars characters, not the most flawed, not the most powerful, but my favorite Star Wars characters. And when I look back at Star Wars, whether it's the prequels, spin-offs, sequels, whatever, originals, Rey always comes to mind as one of my favorite characters. I love the the turmoil she had to go through as a character from start to finish. Very Luke-esque in the very beginning, obviously, but such a different path as it kind of laid out in front of her from The Last Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker. We all kind of expected it to go that route after we knew what had happened in The Last Jedi, right? Obviously, it wasn't a clear-cut path. It was very turbulent, and she went through very traumatic experiences and understanding of things in the final movie. But I just love the way the character is built and how she finished. And Jacob, you mentioned the performance by Daisy Ridley is just off the charts good. It's incredible. It's such a powerful performance because, like, if you think of like what she learned in that final movie of who she was an heir of, essentially, like you have to bring out a certain performance, and she brings out that performance, and it just adds levity to the character for me. I also love her fighting style as a Jedi. And kind of how she channels the Force, which plays a huge role into it for me because I'm such a fan of the Force and the Jedi side of it, and just the mystery and the legendary status of it and just the history of it. And so, yeah, it's easy for me. It would have been, I would have felt very unsettled if I had walked away from this without having her on this list. Whether it was
that's how I felt too.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. I knew she was going to make your list. I'm honestly surprised she's so low, to be honest.
She was a little bit higher, but then I started thinking about favorites and really, really thinking about these characters. And there's a couple, like I just said, she was originally number 9, and I just switched my number 10 to a different spot.
Yeah, I think the problem is the Star Wars universe is so big, and there's been so much time that we've gotten able to like digest these characters that it's so difficult to make a list like this.
I agree. I agree. All right, Mr. Bartley, why don't you kick us off on round number 9?
All right. So going with number 9. And again, I knew right away when I started making this list, this guy was like one of the first 5 names that popped in my head that he's going to be on the list. And then when I started making it, he kept moving down and down and down. And he eventually made the list. And that is Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson from The Phantom Menace. So look, I love Qui-Gon Jinn so much. The only reason he's this low is because he's only in one movie. But he's a presence in Star Wars overall. He has a presence in the prequels. I forget. I think it's a vision that somebody is having where they see a Qui-Gon Jinn in their vision in the Clone Wars. And
I know they do.
Maybe it's Yoda. It might be Yoda. Yoda's having a vision. And then they're like
in Rebels.
They're like at a party or something. There's a bunch of people around, and then you see like a young Qui-Gon Jinn, and it's actually Liam Neeson voicing him.
It's the final season where Yoda goes.
Okay, yeah, it was the Yoda.
Yeah. And he sees good side Dooku and all those characters. Yes.
Oh yes. So he has a presence in Star Wars overall, especially for the Obi-Wan character, and we talked about the Duel of the Fates and how that affected all of Star Wars. But as far as on-screen presence, he's only in one film. But look, Liam Neeson, man, because at that time, before that movie, we had only seen really Luke and Obi-Wan as Jedis. And they weren't even really, like, Obi-Wan wasn't really practicing the Jedi way anymore either. So we didn't really get to see a lot of Jedis. So for that, from the start of that movie, we see Qui-Gon Jinn as Obi-Wan's master, and he just kind of, even though what we know as a Jedi is it can, depending on how you feel, a Jedi is one thing, a Jedi is another thing. But for Qui-Gon Jinn, like, he kind of embodied what a Jedi was for me when I was growing up. I didn't understand what a Jedi was back then, but I'm like, as far as what a Jedi looked like and the way they acted, I always identified with him as a Jedi, and he kind of set the stage for us because the prequels really established the Jedi mythology and the Force mythology and a lot of that stuff. So for him being, basically, he's the lead of that film. And I'll never forget his presence as a character. And it's freaking Liam Neeson, man. He's like one of the biggest movie stars of all time. And he was in Star Wars as a Jedi. That's so cool.
He plays all the biggest roles. He plays Qui-Gon. He played Zeus. He did the Taken guy.
I know, right?
He's done all these giant roles, right? And,
I forgot about Zeus.
So, I will withhold any comments for later on.
Yeah. Fair. Look, I like how we did the last rankings where, for the most part, the person naming their character or scene talked, and then we just moved on, because then if you bring up that character in the future, you can talk about them, so kind of works.
Exactly. All right, Mr. Brian, number 9.
All right, ready for the first bomb of the show?
Maybe.
Drop bomb. My number 9 is Darth Vader. He is, that's
Wow.
Jacob. When I look and see the list, I'm like,
okay. I'm just gonna ask you guys and say right now, I counted Anakin and Darth Vader as the same character in this.
See, I didn't,
because he is like, he's literally the same like body going from beginning to end. So
okay,
he's one character.
Brian, how do you feel about that?
To be completely honest, if Anakin and Darth Vader were separate entities, I don't know if I would still have him where he's at.
Yeah, I mean that.
I personally don't like the Anakin character as much.
It would exponentially change my list.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, I just figured
let's put it this way:
the same person just changed over time.
If we keep that as separate people, I probably wouldn't even have him on my list anymore.
That's fine. Why don't we do this? We'll stick with how it is. Jacobs is Jacobs. He can explain why when you get to that character. Brian's point of view is that he's 2 separate characters, and we'll go with that way. It was 2 different viewpoints on the characters. So Jacob's list is going to stay the same. Brian's list is going to stay the same, and we'll explain it once we get there. How about that?
That's fine.
Perfect. Brian, go on, Mr. Darth Vader.
I took it as 2 different names, 2 different people, took on 2 different personas.
I can definitely see Jacob's side of it, though.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. So Darth Vader, he's the freaking icon. Probably, arguably, the greatest villain in cinematic history. Like, I mean, if he's not the most easily recognizable, then I don't know who is as far as movie villains. He's just a freaking badass. He is for us the original Sith, the original, even though they never said Sith in the first 3. He's like the original bad guy, even before the Emperor, because the Emperor didn't show up in the first movie. So, I mean, like this, when I was little, like when I wasn't playing being Darth Vader, he was the bad guy I imagined going up against. So, I mean, like, dude's an icon. The character's an icon. And how can you not love his all black suit and the music when he walks in just makes him that much more menacing. And the fact that he'll just stand there and just have that breathing apparatus going. Like, that character's, I mean, I could go on, and most people could, but I'll leave it at that and leave you both with some more to talk about.
So I wanted to
talk about it more.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask, because we did the honorable mentions last time. How do we want to do the honorable mentions this time? Like say for example, like randomly, just for hypothetically, I didn't have Qui-Gon on my list. Do I want to say, when you mentioned Qui-Gon, I didn't have him on my list, he was ranked in at number
I would save it for the end, because now I'm anticipating if Qui-Gon is on your list and when he's going to show up.
Okay.
If you say it then it's going to give it away.
Fair enough. Okay, yeah. Moving on to my number 9. Oh my god, I have such a hard time putting this. This is so difficult. My number 9 is R2D2. Number 9 is R2D2. Nice. I have a really hard time leaving him so low. It really does like hurt me to my core to leave this guy so low. He's one of the few characters that has been in every single Star Wars movie in some capacity, not to the point that we want him to be in the sequels, but he's in there. The comedy aspect of these films, right? He's such a character. He's so much heart. He's so loyal. He's a character that has been played by a brilliant person as well, and been put in scenes that are just perfect for him. The way that he was introduced in the prequels was incredible as well. Being handed down through the Skywalker generation, essentially, not handed down, but just finding his way to the Skywalker generation and finding his way in the story. And it also helps because the banter with C-3PO now, I don't have 3PO on my list, and they always feel like a tandem to me. But out of the two, I lean more towards R2. And I think he's a brilliant character. I really like the personality that the droid has is second to none. And I know BB-8 has a great personality. K2SO has a great personality because he can talk. But R2's personality really, to me, is second to none out of all of the droids. And the relationship that is written out and developed between every character, not just Luke, not just Anakin, but Han, 3PO, BB-8 at times, Luke, like just all of these characters that he's surrounded with. And so while I'm uncomfortable leaving him so low, again, it's hard to see this character not on my list.
Yeah.
That's a great choice. I believe he's the only character who is alive through all three trilogies that like sees everything and remembers everything. Because C-3PO's
erased.
Yeah, exactly. Which why doesn't R2 tell somebody like he knows so many things that he could tell other people, but
yeah.
I love R2 because I even love him in the Phantom Menace when he's the droid to save them, their ship.
Yep.
He's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. All right. On to number 8.
Yes, number 8. So I knew for sure this character, like I toggled with not putting 10 and 9 on my list, but I knew for sure this guy was going to be on my list, and it's Chewie. Nice. Chewbacca. Dude, Chewbacca is the best, man. I love this character. It's so cool. Well, they kind of do this with R2-D2 as well, but it's a character where you don't know what he's saying, but his dialogue lives off of how the other person responds to him. And they do the same thing with R2-D2 as well. But I just love, I used to watch the movies and I would imagine what I think Chewbacca's saying, like just fill in the words for myself. And there's a scene in The Force Awakens when they're all in the war room talking about the plan to go destroy the Starkiller base. And then they're all like, all right, let's go do this. And then Chewbacca screams. And I imagine he's going, F yeah. Like, because he just screams like he just is like a war call or something. I just imagine he was saying F yeah. But I mean, look, I love Chewie, man. We talk about R2-D2 and how long he's been around. If Chewbacca's been around longer. Maybe they forced the cameo in was it Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith?
Revenge of the Sith.
That maybe they forced that cameo, but it's still really cool that Yoda knew him and that the Wookiees took part in the Clone Wars. So, I mean, Chewie is just the man's best friend of the galaxy. I mean, we know he was literally modeled after George Lucas's dog, where he came up with the idea. So, I love Chewbacca. Like it's. If there was an option to like bring one character out of Star Wars into real life and just have them be your companion, like your buddy that you're always hanging out with, Chewbacca would be near the top of that list. I love Chewie.
I agree.
Yeah. Also agree. My number 8, probably another shocker, is Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is
nice.
number 8 on my list. Growing up, that was my favorite character, obviously. Especially being a prequel baby, and like Obi-Wan was the freaking coolest. Like, I mean, you almost kind of growing up at the age watching it, you almost kind of felt like you were Obi-Wan, kind of like
started on a menace for sure. Yeah.
Like you kind of felt like you were that age, and then growing with it, and the dude drops some of the best lines out of the whole franchise. I mean, hello there is an icon phrase. Like, you could say it to almost anyone and they're no. I'm sure if
Padme.
So yeah, smashing Padme. But I mean, like, I feel like I could even say that to my sister and she would know what I'm talking about, and she doesn't know nearly as much. But, I mean, yeah, the stuff he goes through from, well, I mean, he kind of is still technically in 5 and 6, but from episodes 1 through 4, I mean, his story arc is outside of the movies. He's in comics. He's in books. He's in TV shows. He's about to get his own another TV show that's live action. I mean, he's arguably one of the most like defendable characters where people will like pitchfork whoever screws him up. Like if you mess up Obi-Wan, like people are going to come for your head. So like, I mean, yeah, Obi-Wan's just awesome. And I think it's kind of a little bit more special since we kind of got to see him from young to when he died older. So, yeah, I love Obi-Wan. He growing up, he'll always still have been and be my favorite at that time. But, yeah, love the guy.
Cool. All right.
Nice.
My number 8, it comes at the hand of that question we just had a little while ago, and I have Anakin Skywalker as my number 8. And Anakin, yeah, Brian, you had just mentioned you kind of, it was like a perfect little segue into mine. You had said how Obi-Wan was kind of the character you saw growing up through these movies as a prequel baby. It was, for me, it was Anakin. And I'm younger, obviously, and just by a few years, and but I grew up watching these movies, and I saw it through Anakin's eyes. That's what I saw it as. And it's funny because if 10 years ago, or even maybe just a few years ago, if we would have done this list, he would not be on my list. He is on my list strictly because of the Clone Wars, the TV show. He is on this list because of the Clone Wars. What Dave Filoni had done with that character after what George Lucas had started in the prequels, it truly is magnificent how he turned that character around into making him the Anakin Skywalker we expected him to be and what we wanted him to be from the beginning. What we knew he could be is probably a better way of saying it. It came full circle, and it really came full circle in this recent season of the Clone Wars, the final season of that final moment when they were on the bridge. That moment where he steps out in front of those droids and he's fighting them off. That's the Anakin Skywalker I've always envisioned. And you combine that with what we saw in the movies and how Hayden Christensen played the character, who got really good over those two movies, so much better from the second to the third. I love Anakin in the third movie. I think he's such a great, just complex character. Obviously very complex because going to the dark side and everything, but I just love the character of Anakin, how he takes it on and how different he is compared to the other Jedi and how unique he is in his views and how he handles situations. And he kind of has, this non-scared attitude and kind of just like saying, if it happens, it happens. If not, then I'm going to go for it or whatever. And so Anakin is definitely a special character to me, and being a prequel baby, like we have mentioned multiple times on this show, that's what I saw the prequels through. And so Anakin ranks in number 8 for me.
Yeah, I mean, Filoni easily made him someone that went from next to Jar Jar Binks, who's probably the most hated character coming out of those prequels, and now people love that character. So I completely agree with what you said about Filoni, that he changed that character big time.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to go ahead.
That last season definitely helped a lot with Anakin for sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to number 7.
All right, you guys are talking about bombs and surprises. I mean, this is not that big of a surprise if you know me. I don't talk about him that much. But coming in at number 7 is Luke Skywalker. Star Wars is like, Luke is the main character of all of Star Wars. I mean, some could argue Darth Vader or Anakin, but for me, it's Luke, and he is just, the thing is, he's kind of more, even though it's more realistic to what a real 19-year-old would be like, I don't like the way he acts in A New Hope necessarily at first, before he starts training. He's kind of funny
because that's your and I's favorite movie.
Yeah, and he's kind of like a whiny teenager, and then he just gets pulled into this adventure, and he has to kind of just become a man instantly. And that's kind of cool. It's very realistic. And that's what George was kind of going for in a way. He couldn't have a 12-year-old kid be in that role, but when you're a 12-year-old kid, you look up to 19-year-old kids. So that he was putting Luke in that role for us, somebody to idolize. And if you just look at Luke from A New Hope to The Last Jedi, or even The Rise of Skywalker, it's funny because I kind of like older Luke more a little bit in a way. The more I think about it, I kind of like grumpy old man Luke, but I just wish we would have seen him physically fight with a lightsaber. And I'll always say that until the day I die. No one's going to convince me that no, it was the right thing to do, and it was a super special meaning behind it. And no, I wanted to see Luke with a lightsaber. Come on. But
I agree.
Either way, just looking at the character, and honestly, if it was just Luke from the original saga, I might have him a little bit lower. But because I like older Luke, like, I'm not saying I like what they did with the character. I'm saying I like the way he is in the movies, like the way Mark Hamill's playing him in the movies. Like, I really like that. So it kind of takes it up a little bit for me. So, I mean, how can you go wrong? He's probably going to be on everybody's top 10 Star Wars list. It's freaking Luke Skywalker, the character in Star Wars. So you got to go with him somewhere.
All right, Mr. Brian, number 7.
Number 7. It's funny because I keep looking at this character and going, wait, why is he so low? But for me, that's Maul. I love Darth Maul, however you want to call him. And it is absolutely insane where he started and where he is at today. I almost would dare to say he has had the biggest, not story arc, but like
development.
Yes, thank you. That's a better word. Development of any character. I mean, look at what the guy came from. He came from a movie where he said 3 lines, if that. No more than probably like 5 words in a sentence, and is now one of the most loved characters in all of Star Wars. People would choose him as their number 1, and I wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
Even people who haven't seen the animated stuff
know who he is,
love him, and
yes,
like him, know who he is, and love him.
So to see a character go from a one-off with 3 lines of dialogue and barely in the movie, minus the fight scene in the end, it's incredible. Because, like I said, to be on a list of top 10 after that is insane. People will have him as a number 1. And it just blows my mind, like, the character development of that character. Probably more than any other character. Just because it started from nothing and it just exploded. And that gets credit for Filoni. Filoni taking that character and just absolutely just molding it. People loved the character. That's arguably probably one of the biggest complaints people have of the prequel is we didn't get enough Maul. I think people would have been happy if he would have stayed probably replaced Dooku's role and just stayed the whole entire time. I don't think people would have complained. But it's that character is amazing. Backstory is amazing. You're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't watched or read more about him and you just only know him from Phantom Menace, because you're missing out on a fantastic character, in my opinion. And he's a freaking double-sided lightsaber. Like,
oh yeah,
the OG double-sided lightsaber. So yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to my number 7, and that is one that has already been mentioned, and it is without a doubt a character that cannot go without being talked about when having this discussion, and that is Chewbacca. Chewbacca is one of the greatest characters to ever come out of Star Wars. And I won't take too long because we are getting up there on time, and we got to make sure we get to the consensus. Just a great, loyal friend. Like really in a galaxy full of bounty hunters and traitors and bad guys and just, things left and right from the moment we first saw him meet Han Solo in his spinoff movie to the final moments of The Rise of Skywalker. A loyal, long living friend that will do whatever he can for his friends and family. And that's exactly what you want when you're fighting bad guys or fighting good guys. If you're on that side, you want someone who will go through that with you through thick and thin. And Jacob, you had touched on how, the dialogue with the character is so brilliant.
Oh yeah.
I'll touch on the physical side of it. The freaking bowcaster is incredible.
Oh yeah.
Like just incredible. His ability flying the Falcon is even more incredible. You know how, guys, I like my ships and my cars and stuff, and just seeing him pilot that ship is just remarkable. And so it is without a doubt, when I talk about all-time great Star Wars characters, 100% Chewie will always be on the list for me.
Man, I want to put him higher now. You're just making me think like Chewie could fix your car if you need him to, man.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, Chewbacca ranks in at number 7 for me.
Yeah,
sweet.
All right,
now I'm jealous. I want him higher.
On to number 6.
Whew, are we already at number 6? Damn. Okay. Number 6 is Kylo Ren / Ben Solo, but mostly Kylo Ren because that's what we only got, like 5 minutes of Ben Solo. So we're going Kylo Ren. Look, Kylo Ren, he's my favorite character of the new trilogy, hands down. He has been for a while. I think I wasn't sure after Force Awakens it was between him and Rey, but after Last Jedi, he's my favorite character in all the movies. It's so crazy. A lot of people want to talk about all the stuff they got wrong in the sequel trilogy, but same people won't say what they got right. And the Ben Solo character is one of the things that they got right. The Kylo Ren character, he's so complex and deep. And I know you said Darth Maul might be the most developed, but Kylo Ren might be the most deep character in Star Wars. Just his eternal struggle. We don't even know what he was like as a boy. Like we didn't even get to see that. We just see him as the monster already, and he kind of comes back to being a man. But I feel like we still haven't explored the character fully. I wish we could, but I kind of don't want to at the same time. It's just Adam Driver does a phenomenal job. We have a world-class actor playing the role. It's like, how everybody, like how Leonardo DiCaprio was almost Anakin. This is like that. Like we got an Oscar,
we got him,
like top-notch actor playing our main guy in this movie. And I'll be forever grateful for that. Like I just think he's so cool. And especially in The Force Awakens, his voice and all that stuff. We talked about it so many times, but it has a lot to do with the acting performances as well. But got to give it to Adam Driver as Kylo Ren in my number 6 spot.
All right, I like it. All right, Mr. Brian.
My number 6 is Kylo Ren as well.
Hey,
so, I
thought he might have been higher for you.
Yeah, this is from here on up. I had struggled. I think I love this character. Just everything you said. The thing, I think, to be honest, like, if I had to identify with the character, it'd probably be this one the most. Like trying to be a bad guy, but then at the end, in the inside, you're still a softy, a good guy. So I feel like that kind of always pulled me a little bit with this guy. And dude's a badass, played by Adam Driver. I mean, what more can you want? His lightsabers, legit. Every time I think about him, I think of his moonwalk stab on Mustafar that he has.
Oh yeah. His fighting style is really cool. It's because Adam Driver's so tall, it's so like
aggressive.
Awkward, but it's
very aggressive.
Cool though.
Yeah. So I mean, number 6 with me is Kylo Ren as well.
Perfect. All right, moving on to number 6 for me, and that is again someone who's already been mentioned. It is a name I go by on this show, and that is Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon didn't make top 5.
It definitely hurts me. It definitely hurts me that it didn't make top 5, but that is strictly because, and Jacob mentioned that we only got to see him once.
That's fair.
That does play a role into it, and no matter how much I absolutely adore this character and what he stands for, and I mentioned it with Anakin, but more so than ever with Qui-Gon, how different and unique of a Jedi he really is. He's the closest we will ever get to what's called the Gray Jedi for you Legend fans or anything like that, who kind of teeters between the both sides, if you will, and doesn't believe in the Jedi Council, and he stands up for what he believes in, and he played a crucial role in the entire saga, even though he died in the first movie, because his death resulted in Darth Vader, if that's how we want to look at it. And so the character isn't just so important, but he's really just a badass. He is. I mean, you mentioned it, Jacob. Liam Neeson. You can't go wrong with Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
You just can't go wrong with Liam Neeson. And so even though it does hurt not being in top 5, Qui-Gon without a doubt will be on that list, and he ranks at number 6.
Sweet. Awesome.
All right, gentlemen, here it is, the top 5.
Oh, let's get into it, man. Let's rip the Band-Aid off here. He should be higher, but my number 5 is Darth Maul. And Darth Maul, whatever. It's for me, it's the same character, just changing over time. And look, Brian said most of what I wanted to say. I'll never forget that appearance or that fight in the Phantom Menace and the Duel of the Fates, and that defined what a lightsaber battle is for me, and his just legacy over time. It really has been something crazy. I don't think we've ever seen that. Like, we've seen other characters, like Ahsoka was introduced in animation, so she's a great character, but we never seen a character introduced in live action, taken to animation, and then just, taken that far. Yeah, exactly. Or just become so popular.
And then come back.
Yeah. And it's like they brought him to a certain point, his story was done, and then they bring him back in another certain point in the saga, and now you can tell a whole new story with him. So there's so many different cool things you can do with him. And the fact that he was, well, as far as we know, like that we saw on screen, he was Palpatine's first apprentice that we knew, and then he was just thrown aside like just a piece of crap. And Palpatine, he showed us first that Palpatine was just using everybody. So I don't know. It's so weird to love a villainous character so much, because ultimately he's just a douche, and he wants bad things. He really is. But sometimes we root for bad characters, and he's one of my favorite bad characters of all time.
Bad guys. All right. So for my number 5, this might be blasphemy for some of you, but my number 5 is Ahsoka.
That's pretty high.
I will never forget just growing up thinking, no, I will never accept that she is Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, and because he never had one of the movies, and blah, 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 blah. Boy, was I wrong. No, it wasn't because of you. Yeah, it probably was because of him. But
you would never have watched Rebels or Clone Wars if it
I would
wasn't
have watched
for me.
Rebels. Clone Wars, I give you. I 100% give you Clone Wars. Clone Wars, absolutely. Just because I was such a stubborn ass with not wanting to agree that she wasn't part of the movie. So that was always my stickler. It was, if it's not part of the movie, I'm not counting it, or a book. But Jesus, this character, in fact, I feel like I'm the least deserving to talk or speak of her. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll say Ahsoka for me at number 5.
Man, that's a huge jump for you, like, to go from how you first felt about her to where she is now. That's crazy.
She's an incredible character and played by an incredible person. So, yeah. But like I said, I'm the least qualified to speak of her. So,
all right, number 5 on my list, ranking in at the top 5, I have Leia Organa,
Nice.
the queen of Star Wars, the queen of not
The
damsels
people's
in distress, but
princess.
action females. She was the first of the female characters to step outside of the damsel in distress and actually provide for herself. That was followed by characters. It was followed by characters like Sarah Connor, like Ellen Ripley. It was all because of Leia Organa, and the way that she is handled in these movies is absolutely incredible. The power that she holds as just a political figure and as a person in general to the rebels and later on the resistance. How important she is to not just the galaxy, but to all of the characters around her personally, whether it is Han and their relationship, whether it is her twin brother Luke after finding that out, or in the sequels, someone like Poe Dameron, who isn't Poe Dameron without Leia. someone who like Rey Skywalker, who is not that character who probably would have fallen to the dark side if it wasn't for Leia. And so she plays a core part in everything. And she is without a doubt one of the most brilliantly written characters in all of Star Wars. She's one of the most important characters in all of Star Wars. I think that Carrie Fisher, first of all, is just a marvel, and it's so sad that we lost her a few years ago and we weren't able to see that character fully realized in these movies. But how she captured that character throughout those years is truly magical. And I know that someone else on this panel is very passionate about Leia, so I will withhold any more comments until that moment comes. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to number 4.
So number 4, my number 4 is Han Solo.
Nice.
Han Solo, for most people, he's going to be at least in the top 10, but he's going to be in a lot of people's top 5s. And he's so cool because he's not a Jedi. He's not a politician. He's not any of this. He's a smuggler. He's a criminal, basically, at first. He's exactly. He's a
scruffy looking.
He's not a scavenger, but what do they call him? A scoundrel.
Scoundrel.
Yeah, he's a scoundrel. And I just love this character because he kind of, we talk about it all the time, how like he was kind of the audience's eyes into this whole mystical world, how he didn't believe in it and he had to accept it over time. And he's so good in The Force Awakens. Harrison Ford is so good in The Force Awakens as Han Solo. Like his character, that performance and what his character went through in that movie did the most for a legacy character in those films. Like I enjoyed him the most out of Luke, Leia, or Han in those movies. Like Harrison Ford in The Force Awakens was my favorite performance out of all of them. So I love this character so much, and I'm sure you guys maybe might mention him. Who knows? Maybe he's off your list. I don't know, but all I'm saying is like I love Han Solo because he feels like he can exist in our world, and he exists in this Star Wars world, and
he's one hell of a pilot.
Harrison Ford's performances, man. Even though like we heard stories that he wasn't as passionate in Return of the Jedi or whatever, but he is so good in all the movies, but especially in A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, just off the chain. Like he should have been nominated for an Oscar for Empire Strikes Back. I got to look at that list of that year to be honest, but he should have been. I love Han.
Cool. All right, Ryan.
Well, you did it again, Jacob. My number 4 is Han Solo as well.
Oh man.
Yeah, Jacob said it. The guy's a scoundrel, and he has some of the best lines in all of Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
and he's just freaking hilarious, and you just love the guy just because he's just flying by the seat of his pants. He's finding a way to survive, finding a way to live, and just gets dragged into everything. And Harrison Ford absolutely is amazing. He made this character. Alden Ehrenreich, I personally love as the character as well. I think he did a great job. In fact, he's one of the bright spots of that movie. So yeah, freaking Han Solo. I love that guy. I just love how everyone knows that he's a dirtbag and a scumbag, and he just is like. It doesn't have a reason for it. He just is. So yeah, my number 4 is Han Solo.
A hero as well.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he's still a hero. Yeah.
All right, moving on to number 4 for me. I know for a fact this character is definitely not on either of your guys' list, but I have a personal infatuation with this character, and that is Mr. Boba Fett, the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy. I know that we have seen very minimal of him in both movies and animation. But coming from a background of knowing legend stories and seeing comic runs and stuff like that, it's the majority of the reason why I absolutely love this character. I think he's such a well-balanced character. The Slave One is probably my second all-time favorite ship in Star Wars in general, behind the Millennium Falcon, obviously. And again, the way he pilots that ship, the way he acts as a character. He's a lot of bounty hunters. We see something in like The Mandalorian, right? Where a lot of bounty hunters just work for the prize. Boba Fett works for the prize, but he's also downright a bad guy. He is downright a bad guy, without a doubt. And yeah, it's just, I mean, I have this great artwork in the background of Han and Carbonite and Boba Fett's reflection. Just everything about the character to me is brilliant, from his ship to his uniform to how quietly, just he's a quiet assassin. He really is, a man of very few words. He's very old school Western, which is what I love about him so much. And yeah, just for me, it makes sense. Boba Fett, you guys know how much I love the character. I'm surprised he's a little lower than I was expecting, and we're getting very high up there. But yeah, ranking at number 4 for me is Boba Fett.
Awesome.
All right, shall we, gentlemen? Rank out the top 3.
Going into the top 3. Okay, so my number 3 is Anakin / Darth Vader, but I don't know how we're going to count this in the consensus because I took them as one character. So I'll let you think about that, Jake. But I took it as, for me, he is the same body going through this journey of life, and he changed later on in life, not to his own decision, but just what ended up happening. But if you're gonna force me to decide, it's heavily in the favor of Darth Vader, but Anakin, the stuff in the Clone Wars really pushed up Anakin for me. Like you guys said, if it wasn't for the Clone Wars, Anakin wouldn't be considered necessarily. Maybe him in Revenge of the Sith, who is just, I love that movie more and more and that character more and more in that film, but I don't think I would like him as much in the film if I didn't watch Clone Wars. So I really think Clone Wars plays a lot into it. But for me, even if we're just looking at Darth Vader, if you look at Vader's journey, I guess from the end of Revenge of the Sith until his death, he is very complex as well. We don't hear him talk as much about it like we do Ben Solo or Kylo Ren, but we know that there's this internal struggle. Like, I didn't consider novels during this, but I always think of Lords of the Sith when I think of Vader, like what he was going through in his mind, how he was remembering Ahsoka and remembering other things that happened in the past. And even if we're just considering this villainous character who wanted to kill his emperor so him and his son can rule the galaxy together, but ultimately decided to kill the emperor anyway to save his son, and all that stuff is just so amazing and in-depth for a character where we didn't even see his face. And I love they show this in like Star Wars montages a lot, where Darth Vader is looking back and forth, like deciding what he wants to do in that climactic moment in Return of the Jedi. And that's just so deep to me that like we knew he was struggling without seeing his face. So that's yeah, I can talk on and on about Darth Vader, and he's number 1 on a lot of people's lists. So it's tough. And Jake, if we want to make things easier, we could just like call him Darth Vader in this ranking if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Sounds good. All right, Mr. Brian.
My number 3, I love this character. She has my heart, and that is the People's Princess, and that's Princess Leia. I adore her. I adore Carrie Fisher. I love everything about this character. Literally, like, my heart melts every time I hear her music play. I'm not gonna lie. Amazing. I think her score is probably my favorite score out of anything ever. It's just so I don't know. I get the feels when I hear that song or that score. From start to beginning to end, she's just such a good character. From the second we meet her to the second she goes to the Force, she's a fantastic character. I love her so much, and yeah, she's a iconic character that will live on forever. And so, yeah, my number 3 is Princess Leia.
These points are really getting interesting. All right, I'll move on to my number 3. When I talk Star Wars, this is a character that in recent years has come up quite a bit, obviously for specific reasons. I know a lot of people shake their heads at me for thinking this highly of this character, and a lot of people, for reasons that have kind of already been explained, don't believe that this character belongs on this list, but that is Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano ranks in as my 3rd favorite Star Wars character for me.
Wow.
This character really, and I'll argue it till something proves me wrong. But I do think that she is the epitome of what a Jedi really means. I really do. I know one other panel member on this podcast believes otherwise. At least one of them.
Well, somebody needs to tell us
Shame.
what a Jedi really is first, because it seems to be
well, that's a discussion for
an
You
unknown
got
question.
told by Alex
That's-
Damon that she is. So that's as close
That's
as
a
we're getting to
discussion for another
Lucas.
day.
I didn't know he was George Lucas, but okay.
He's as
But,
close as we're getting.
This character, from the way that she started, from how she is now, we don't know her ending just yet, and that story I'm sure will be told at some point. But her connection to not just the Clone Wars, her connection to not just Rebels, her connection to the Force in general, obviously showing up in the Rise of Skywalker with Rey, her going to be popping in the Mandalorian season 2 in some capacity. To me, obviously when we think of Star Wars, we think of lightsabers, we think of Jedi, we think of Sith. That's what we think of. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And to me, the proof of what a Jedi should be is her and how her story has been told and how her views are, right? I love the way Qui-Gon thinks. I love the way Qui-Gon thinks and how he protects what he believes in. But from what we know of a Jedi, or what I know of a Jedi to be, to me, it's what she is, or what she becomes, and what she stands up for. And a lot of that was proved in the last season of the Clone Wars, of how, not killing the clones, but just stunning them, and not wanting to do that type of thing in that moment, even though they were after her. And the way she fights as well is absolutely brilliant. You guys, everyone talks about the double-sided lightsaber Maul. I personally always go for the 2 lightsabers. I don't know why. It's just a really cool aspect to me. To be able to fight with 2 sabers and think about 2 different arms going in 2 different directions is much harder, in my opinion. But yeah, it's just, I don't know what it's about the character. I mean, you guys know how much I love her, and I've talked about her plenty of times in the past. But there's just something about the character that just attracts me to the development and the arc and how involved she is and the connections. And we've talked about it multiple times, how she's the product of both Obi-Wan and Anakin, not just one or the other. And that's a brilliant combination to have. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you're kidding me? You're a combination of a Kenobi and a Skywalker. Like, that's amazing. And yeah, so it's crazy. I know some people are going to watch this and listen and be like, wow, he has that character that high. But for me, the character just works. And
I'm surprised it's not your number one, honestly.
So
Yeah,
number
I'm
3 is
surprised
Ahsoka Tano.
she's that low, to be honest. But we know you, so it's different. Yeah. Oh man.
All right,
That's crazy.
number 2.
All right, my number 2 is Princess Leia Organa. Princess Leia, man. Jake, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I mean, I'm sure somebody could find other action movies with female characters before 1977, but did Alien come out in 78, or I believe it
came
was
out right
78,
afterwards,
like
79,
right afterwards.
79.
So they were probably like shooting pretty close together. But the Leia character, man, it's like we talk about recently how female characters don't get the love that they deserve, and she was doing this back in 77. The character so good
In a dress.
Yes, and the moment she, like, Luke just lets her out, basically. They kind of just open the door for her. She's
the way she's laying.
She just takes charge. She's immediately the leader of the group. As soon as she gets out of that room, she does so many things. She takes the gun from Luke and starts shooting herself. Like, she's awesome. And it's Carrie Fisher's performance. And the thing that really got me attached to the Leia character was actually in Return of the Jedi. Her character in Return of the Jedi, when she's on Endor, or the Endor's moon, right, is where they are.
Yes.
One of the moons of Endor, and she's hanging out with is it Wicket, the one that she's hanging out with?
Yes.
Keep
Wicket.
When she's talking to Wicket, and she's like, I forget what she says, but she's like, "Oh, hey there, little buddy." Like, she's all being nice to him, and just the way Carrie Fisher plays her, it's so elegant and so relaxed. Like, she's not trying at all. She just becomes the character.
It's like seems real.
Yeah, and I love her to death. She's my favorite. She's one of my favorite characters in cinema, period. But definitely my favorite female character in all of cinema, for sure. And that's Princess Leia.
I would probably. It's hard. I'd probably say Leia is. I know I just put Ahsoka up there, but it's definitely a toss up between the two.
Well, the thing is, if you made like a all-time favorite female movies list, like Ahsoka wouldn't. Be
Leia,
on there.
Leia would be
Yeah.
up there. She'd probably be
but
my
for a
favorite of all
Star
time.
Wars
Yeah.
list. And the thing is, the Force and everything, and being a Jedi has so much to do with Star Wars. So I don't blame you for having Ahsoka a little bit higher.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Brian.
All right. My number 2
This
is,
is going to change a lot. I'm telling you right now. This is going to change a lot.
my 1 and 2 are going to F things up. My number 2 is a character that will not be on either of your lists, and that is Asajj Ventress.
Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa.
I
was not expecting that.
I absolutely love this character. This character, I don't know why. There's something about this character that I am so extremely drawn to. She has just, in my opinion, almost just as good a story as Maul. She is just this. She's very much similar to Maul. She's this character pulled by false promises, and absolutely gets betrayed. She then has to build her own life and just start over while still gripping with the pains and stuff. And then in the end, we know how Dark Disciples turns out. I don't want to spoil it, but her character, to me, I don't know. I think she has the most human, of all the non-human characters, her story is the most human. Like, you could, like, that is her story is something you could see like happen in real life. You think you can trust someone, they turn their back on you. Your life is completely.
We couldn't hate Dooku more. He does that to Asajj Ventress.
And I mean, she goes from pure evil to I could keep going, but I will always have this soft spot for her, and I think she's one of the most beautifully written characters, and it kills me that there's not more stuff about her. I would buy anything immediately. Dude, from when
if we get to see her in live action one day, oh my goodness,
I would lose my mind. I would
so
absolutely
awesome.
If I could somehow in a dream world get Dark Disciples into a real life acted out, I would camp in a tent out in front of the movie theater to be the first one in. I absolutely love this character. And sometimes she does kind of punch my number 1 out of first place, depending on how I'm feeling. Wow. So, yeah.
All right,
probably the most shocking thing this whole
time. Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
My number 2 is Luke Skywalker, Mr. Skywalker. I had said it, I think, on one of our other shows or possibly this show, but he is, to me, he's what a hero is. He's exactly what a hero is for me. His story in the original movies is absolutely brilliant, and it definitely helps with the sequel trilogy. I know that he wasn't what we wanted him to be in those movies, but I agree with you, Jacob. I do like Old Man Luke, Old Grumpy Luke. I think it adds a great depth and very many layers to the character doing it that specific way. Obviously, we all wanted it a different way as far as being a Master Jedi, wielding a lightsaber, all that type of stuff. But the moments that he was in there, they added to the story. They added to his character. They added to other characters. Mark Hamill is truly incredible in this role. I go back and forth on which version of Luke is my favorite as far as which movie. I tend to go with Return of the Jedi Luke, just because he's got this full-fledged Jedi Knight.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's much more embracing his powers. He's much more confident in himself. And that scene in the throne room in Return of the Jedi is just incredible with Vader and Palpatine and how he plays that role. And so if I'm ever asked the question of, you know, who do you think is the greatest hero in all of movies, Luke Skywalker is always up there. He really is always up there for me because he embodied what that meant as his story went on. And so number 2 for me is Luke Skywalker.
It's a great one.
All right, gentlemen, here it is. Number one overall.
And the biggest surprise of all.
Go ahead. Which
Maz Kanata. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. My number 1, we all know, is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And just throw together all my old clips of me talking about him and we're good. But no, I love Obi-Wan because for me, I remember telling my brother this a long time ago, like even when this was like before I ever started podcasting or anything, like and at the time I wasn't thinking about who's the most Jedi out of all these Jedi. I was just thinking about Obi-Wan as a character, and Obi-Wan always follows the rules for the most part. I mean, I hadn't seen Clone Wars at this point, so I was talking about Obi-Wan like in the prequels, basically. He always followed the rules with the Jedi, and he even in Clone Wars, the animated series, for the most part, other than the rules that he does break, like having a love interest and all these things, he tries to follow the rules. He's always being like the hard ass who doesn't want to break protocol, doesn't want to break policy. And we even see that in the last episode he appears in the Clone Wars. He's still trying to kind of be that. And it's maybe to his faults, to be honest, because there's a lot of things that the council was doing that he shouldn't have gone along with. And maybe that's his flaw, because a lot of people want to see Obi-Wan as like, we know he failed Anakin and all that stuff, but a lot of people want to see Obi-Wan as this like, kind of just prototype Jedi to look up to, but he's a very flawed character, because why does he accept authority so easily, and why does he want to follow those rules? It's just maybe he thinks that it's the right thing, but I don't know. I love Obi-Wan, and then just as an adult, I really appreciate Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan, and like I talk about that scene where he explains the Force all the time. It's like one of the most quotable scenes in all of Star Wars. So Obi-Wan all day.
Makes sense. That's the mostly shocker of the show.
Yeah.
Probably,
all right, Brian, what is it?
All right. My number one, if you haven't guessed it already, it is the Admiral himself, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Whoa.
I just realized you're wearing that.
I was not expecting that.
I just put it on. If you saw me right before, I was kind of like putting it on. You weren't really?
No, Thrawn didn't come to mind. I had someone else in mind as I'm looking at the list. That's why he was on the list I was looking at.
Who did you think?
Keep talking because we're over time.
I love Thrawn. His character is like so complex, more complex than probably any of the other characters, in my opinion. At the end of the day, the guy's doing what is best for him and his species, essentially. And he's kind of not a bad guy. He does bad things, but he kind of, it's for a purpose. And I don't know. Come on. There's something, if you like bad guys, this guy has blue skin and blood red eyes. He's creepy looking, but like there's something about him. He's just so, I love this character. I don't even really have the explanation for it. I've always loved this character. Even when I was little, I didn't read the Legends books, but I just knew who he was, and he was just like this character that I was infatuated with and obsessed with. And there's something about the blue skin, the red eyes, and that clean white suit. It's just he would be Tarkin if he wasn't an alien. And so this character is so complex. Love the character. But since we're over time, I'll let Jake go for his number one.
No, so you're good. I'm officially looking at the list right now, and it's just,
well, Thrawn might be the smartest character in Star Wars. I would until a 16-year-old outsmarted him, but we can talk about that another day.
All right, my number one is none other than the smuggler himself, Mr. Han Solo.
Nice.
He is the greatest thing to come out of Star Wars, in my opinion, outside of the Force and Jedi. As far as character-wise, he is a detailed, unique, developed character who is played by the brilliant Harrison Ford. His arc from the first time we see him to the last time we see him, how it really did come full circle with the Force and the story of, hokey tricks in the first movie to telling Rey and Finn in The Force Awakens that it truly does exist. And so I just think that he's such a different character for Star Wars, and there's a lot of smugglers in the galaxy, but there's no smuggler like him. and just the way he goes about business, and how he acts in certain situations, and how admirable he is, and how brave he is. Going back to the Carbonite scene in Empire Strikes Back, and stepping out on the ledge against his son in The Force Awakens, and probably knowing he was going to die in that moment, but realizing he had to do it to bring his son back, and eventually that being the catapult to bring Kylo back to the good. Just everything about Han to me is just brilliant. The character is so amazing. And it's surprising because I would have expected a Force user to be at the top for me, but when I really sit down and think about it, and I'm asked the question, who is my favorite character in Star Wars? Without a question, it is Mr. Han Solo.
Wow. I honestly did not expect that. I knew he was going to be in maybe your top 3, but I did not expect that.
The higher we got, the more I started to realize that was going to be your number 1.
I have no idea who the number 1 consensus is, but I'm guessing it's Han now, but we'll wait for that. Should we talk about honorable mentions, or?
Yeah, let's do it, Jacob. Princess Leia could be up there too.
Yeah, we'll see.
Jacob, go ahead and start us off quickly.
Oh, with some honorable mentions?
Yes.
Okay, so these are 5 characters that it broke my heart they didn't make the list. Kanan Jarrus. I love Kanan. He is my favorite character, probably tied with Ahsoka, that only appeared in animation is Kanan. And then also Ahsoka is one of them. I love Ahsoka. I don't know. I don't love her as much as most people, like as much as you two. And I haven't watched her as much. I've only watched Clone Wars and Rebels once through. So maybe after more time with her, I'll have her higher. Jyn Erso. I really love Jyn Erso, man. I really love that character. So I wanted to put her on here. And Mace Windu. I love Mace Windu. I love how Sam Jackson plays him, his voice, and how much of a hard ass he is. Love Mace Windu. And Lando Calrissian. How did I not have Lando on my list? I love him so much. Those really hurt not to put on.
All right, Brian, quickly.
Kanan, obviously. Poe was one that I had just a hard time leaving off. R2D2 definitely was another one. I'm surprised both of you aren't giving me shit that I didn't have Luke Skywalker in my top 10.
I thought about it.
So, yeah, those ones. Did I say a bad word? I didn't even say it.
It's okay.
Oh, but yeah. So, I'll just keep it going.
Okay, my 5, and you guys talked about mind-blowing, and you guys have not caught on to this yet.
I know who's not on your list, Jake.
So 15 for me is Dr. Aphra. I think the character is just brilliant and continues to grow. 14 for me is Darth Maul, character that it's been talked about. 13 is Kylo Ren. Can't go without talking about him in some capacity. Number 12, Darth Vader. Number 12, Darth Vader, and number 11, Obi-Wan Kenobi, both out of my top 10.
Oh my God, that's right. You didn't have.
I can't believe Obi-Wan's on your list, man. That's
I know, but I shook the list. I shook the list up, and I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think that he is amazing, but the characters above him are just a little bit more in the favorite side of things. So
I like this guy too, the Grand Inquisitor.
All right, gentlemen. Well, shall we do it? Shall we get to this consensus list here?
I don't even want to know it.
Okay, so we have seven who did not make the list. They had points but did not make the list, and I'll run through them very quickly. So 17 is K2SO, 16 is Rey Skywalker, 15 is R2D2, 14 is Anakin Skywalker, 13 is Chewbacca, 12 is Qui-Gon Jinn, and 11 is Boba Fett, barely making the list. And here we go, gentlemen. Ranking it at number 10 with 9 points, Asajj Ventress. That is thanks to Brian. Number 9, ranking it with 10 points. And the next four are all 10 points. They are all 10 points, but they're all based on where they're ranking in our certain lists. So number 9 with 10 points is Kylo Ren. Number 8 with 10 points is Darth Maul. Number 7 with 10 points is Darth Vader. Number 6 with 10 points is Thrawn. Number 5 with 13 points is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Number 4 with 14 points is Ahsoka Tano. Number 3 with 23 points. 3 and 2 were tied. Number 2 had a higher spot. So number 3 with 23 points is Princess Leia. Number 2 with 23 points. is Luke Skywalker, and number 1 with 24
Wow.
points, winning by 1 point,
So
is Mr. Han
wait,
Solo.
so we have Han, Luke, and Leia as our top 3.
Yeah.
Hey,
There
I'm
shouldn't
happy
be
with
any
that.
other way.
I'm happy
Yes,
with that.
that
And
is
Darth
our
Vader
top
made the
3.
list, which he should.
Yes. So, yes, there it is, guys. So quickly,
I think
Asajj
Thrawn
Ventress,
should have
Kylo
been-
Ren, Asajj
I was
Ventress,
just-
Kylo Ren, Darth Maul, Darth Vader, Thrawn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka Tano, Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo, ranking as our number 1 favorite character.
You were
in Star
right.
Wars.
Brian's top 2 did highly affect the list, but not in the
They
way
did.
we were thinking.
They did,
I would-
and if I had included Obi-Wan and Vader on my list, that would have shaken it up even more.
Oh yeah.
I think Thrawn probably should be the number 9 spot because me, I always screw up these lists because of my number 1 and 2
that's the whole
every
point.
time.
You don't think about how it's going to affect the list. You just make your list and let it happen, and that's what
Crazy.
happens.
True.
Yes. All right,
This was
gentlemen,
the
well, there it
craziest
is.
List.
There it is, our official favorite list of Star Wars. We have officially ranked our character list. It is official. If we ever have a conversation, we're going back to this video. There it is.
It's going to
this is
change
the
in 4
Padawan
minutes.
Yeah, this is the Padawan podcast for this week. Went a little over time, but definitely necessary for this type of topic. And so make sure you guys let us know in the comments what your favorite characters are. What do you think about our list? How different your list is from ours? Because I guarantee you it probably is. If it's blasphemy, if I don't have Vader and Obi-Wan on my list, or if it's
I didn't have Luke or Chewie.
that Brian has Asajj as high as 2 on his list, just come at us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Don't come too hard.
Definitely the more normal list out of all of us.
You're the more vanilla.
Make sure you guys are following us on all social medias, audio podcast platforms as well. This podcast lives on Tuesdays right here on Apocaflix Movies. Gentlemen, as always, thank you for joining me. That is Jacob. That is Brian. I am Jake. We are the Padawan Podcast crew, and we'll see you guys next time.